Pittsburgh's coaching staff just watched a rookie do something nobody expected. A veteran cornerback stepped back, and a third-round pick stepped straight into the fire, and he didn't blink. By the time OTAs wrapped up, one name was suddenly impossible to ignore inside the Steelers building. Quick reminder before we dive in. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a Steelers breakdown like this one. Now let me ask you something before we even get into the details. When a franchise spends a third-round pick on a defensive back, what do they actually expect from him in year one? A spark off the bench, special teams reps, or a legitimate shot at meaningful snaps before he's even played a single preseason down? Because what just happened in Pittsburgh might be the answer to that exact question, and it's got the fan base buzzing. Let's set the scene. Organized team activities are usually the least dramatic part of the NFL calendar. No pads, no hitting, no real contact. Just guys in shorts running through install and building chemistry. It's supposed to be quiet. It's supposed to be a warm-up. But this offseason in Pittsburgh, it turned into something else entirely, because a rookie cornerback out of Georgia forced his way into the conversation way ahead of schedule. His name is Daylen Everette, and if you're just now hearing it, you're about to hear it a lot more. Pittsburgh selected him in the third round of this year's draft, the 85th overall pick, out of a Georgia secondary that's produced NFL talent for years. He earned third-team All-SEC honors as a senior, led his defense with 10 pass breakups, and blazed a 4.38 40 at the combine, while standing about 6 foot even with arms pushing 32 inches. On paper, the tools were always there. But tools on paper and production on the field are two completely different conversations, and this rookie decided not to wait to have that second conversation. Here's what actually happened. Joey Porter Jr., the Steelers' top cornerback and arguably their best defensive back, not named Jalen Ramsey, was limiting his OTA reps. And look, that's not some ominous red flag. It's a business decision. Porter is hoping to lock in a long-term contract extension, and veterans across the league routinely dial back their off-season workload while those conversations play out behind the scenes. It happens every single year, all across football. But what it did in Pittsburgh was open a door. And Daylen Everette didn't just walk through that door. He sprinted through it. With Porter easing off, Everette found himself getting far more first-team reps than anybody projected for a rookie this early in his career. And instead of looking overwhelmed, he looked like he belonged. Beat reporters covering the team on the ground in the South Side described him going toe-to-toe with DK Metcalf, Pittsburgh's #1 receiver, a 6'4" freak of an athlete who's given elite cornerbacks nightmares across the league for years. And Everette wasn't just surviving those reps. He was competing, getting his hands on passes, making plays that turned heads on the practice field. For a rookie going against a receiver of Metcalf's caliber, that is not something you see every single spring. Now let's talk about why this actually matters, because it's bigger than one flashy OTA rep. Think about how many third-round rookies across the league spend their entire first offseason buried on the depth chart, running with the third group, barely getting acknowledged by beat reporters. That's the normal outcome. That's the expectation. Instead, Everette forced himself into a story about the team's biggest surprise of the entire spring. That's not normal. That tells you something about his makeup, his confidence, and frankly, his talent level walking into a very crowded, very talented Steelers cornerback room that already includes Porter, Ramsey, Jamal Dean, and more. But here's where I want to push back a little bit, because I think the excitement is real, but the projection needs a reality check. Everette's tape and his physical profile actually paint a more complicated picture than just future outside corner. He's a big, physical, long-armed corner who tackles exceptionally well, genuinely one of the best traits in his entire scouting profile. That kind of physicality, that kind of length, historically translates beautifully to either the slot in a big nickel role or full-time safety. And here's the thing. Pittsburgh has real uncertainty at safety beyond this year. Jaquan Brisker is working back into the lineup, but the long-term safety picture next to DeShon Elliott is still very much unsettled beyond this current season. A player with Everette's size, physicality, and ball skills sliding into a quarters-based, too-high safety roll down the line would fit like a glove. On the flip side, there are legitimate questions about whether he holds up in straight man coverage on the outside long-term. He reportedly skipped the agility testing at the combine, and when you watch corners with heavier feet against high-level route runners, you often see them get separated on quick breaks, unless the receiver is just running straight down the sideline on a go route or a post. Everette has elite length and elite speed in a straight line, but NFL slot receivers and top outside receivers make their living on sudden breaks, not just pure speed. That's the swing skill that will define his position long-term. So here's the honest, complete evaluation. Don't be shocked if this ends up being a multi-year developmental story where Everette starts on the outside, shows flashes, and then eventually slides inside to become the eventual heir to Jalen Ramsey's big nickel role, or even a long-term replacement at safety. That doesn't mean the outside corner dream is dead. If he holds up once the pads come on in Latrobe and once real hitting starts in the preseason, there is absolutely a path for him to lock down a starting outside job across from Porter for years to come. Both outcomes are realistic. Both outcomes would represent a home run for Pittsburgh's front office on a third-round investment. All right, I want to hear from you directly on this one, because this is exactly the kind of debate that splits a fan base. Here's your question of the day. Drop your answer in the comments below. Where do you think Daylen Everette ends up long-term in Pittsburgh's defense? Type CB if you think he becomes a true outside cornerback starter. Type BN if you think he eventually takes over that big nickel role. Or type S if you think his future is at full-time safety. I genuinely want to see how this fan base is split on it, so get down there and argue it out. Now let's shift gears, because the cornerback room wasn't the only story coming out of this offseason program. There was a second, quieter surprise happening on the interior of the offensive line, and honestly, I think it deserves just as much attention. All spring long, the expectation was that the Steelers' long-term answer at right guard was going to be Gennings Dunker, their third-round offensive lineman out of Iowa. Dunker played tackle in college, but Pittsburgh's front office has always viewed him as a guard at the next level, and that transition is exactly what you'd expect for any rookie moving to a new position with completely different technique, leverage, and hand placement demands. And based on reports from multiple Steelers beat writers tracking the offensive line all spring, Dunker is still very much in the middle of that adjustment period. That's not a knock on him. It's simply the reality of asking a college tackle to relearn a position from scratch in real time. Does that mean Dunker is out of the running for that starting job? Absolutely not. He'll get a shot in Latrobe when training camp opens, and he'll get every opportunity through the preseason slate to prove that he's ready. If he balls out in those live game reps, this is still very much considered the eventual long-term plan at right guard for this franchise. Rookies adjusting to new positions is a story as old as football itself. Think about how many offensive linemen have needed a full year, sometimes two, before a position change truly clicks. Patience is the name of the game here. But while Dunker works through that transition, somebody else quietly held that starting right guard spot throughout the entirety of OTAs. And that somebody is Spencer Anderson. Anderson is a former 7th-round pick who has bounced around the Steelers' offensive line rotation throughout his career. He's never been labeled a star. He's been solid, replacement-level depth who's answered the call whenever injuries have forced him into the lineup. But this spring, with Dunker still adjusting and the front office also bringing in veteran interior lineman Brock Hoffman, a former undrafted free agent who's played both center and guard throughout his career and was specifically brought in as competition, it was Anderson, not the flashy rookie, not the new addition, who held that #1 right guard spot every single day of OTAs. Now here's the layer that makes this genuinely interesting, and it's something a lot of fans might be overlooking. Anderson isn't just a backup guard. He's also been Pittsburgh's jumbo tight end in short yardage and heavy run packages, particularly alongside Darnell Washington in 2 tight end sets. That package has been a real weapon in Pittsburgh's run game on early downs, and there have been reports that Aaron Rodgers and the new coaching staff want to bring more of that jumbo package back into the offense this season. Anderson has even shown he's got decent hands catching passes out of that look in practice. So the real question isn't just, does Anderson start at right guard? It's, can Pittsburgh get creative enough to use him in both roles simultaneously? And based on how they've handled this exact situation before, the answer looks like yes. Last season, when the Steelers dealt with injuries at guard, they'd plug Anderson in at the guard spot, and then rotate another lineman into that jumbo tight end role on the specific plays where they needed the extra body. There's no reason they can't run that same playbook again this year, sliding either Hoffman or Dunker into that jumbo role on the snaps where Anderson is needed at guard. It's not an either-or situation. It's a chess match, and Pittsburgh's coaching staff has already shown they know how to play it. So let me leave you with this one before we wrap up. Who do you think actually wins that starting right guard job heading into Week 1? Drop your pick down in the comments. Type SA if you're rolling with Spencer Anderson holding on to the spot he already claimed. Type BH if you think Brock Hoffman's veteran experience wins out. Or type GD if you believe Gennings Dunker figures out that position change in time to claim what the front office always envisioned for him. 2 positions, 2 genuine competitions, and a Steelers roster that's clearly deeper and more unsettled in the best possible way heading into training camp. This is exactly the kind of storyline that makes the next few months of Steelers football must-watch. Make sure you're subscribed so you catch every single update as camp battles start heating up in Latrobe. Until next time, here we go, Steelers.